Ladies and gentlemen, on today's episode, we are live from Fort Worth, Texas with our annual Bassmaster Classic episode. But I told you guys all last week that this week's episode would be a lot different than our normal Bassmaster Classic episode, and it certainly is. So buckle up. This episode of Tackle Talk starts right now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. World-class fishing gear. Unmatched personal service. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. We are brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. And folks, it is my favorite website to shop for new fishing gear. You guys already know the reasons why I prefer American Legacy, but I will say it until the cows come home. I will run through a brick wall for these folks because they treat people right. They have the best customer service. They have the best shipping. They have great sales. They have a price match guarantee. They have an amazing loyalty program. The internet's best selection of gently used fishing rods and reels, all on one website, which was recently updated, by the way, to be even more user-friendly, and they're a great Midwestern tackle shop right there in southern Indiana that, again, actually cares about you as a customer and wants to make sure that you get the best fishing gear at the best price. So, again, that is www.americanlegacyfishing.com, and as always, you can use code TACKLETALK5. That's going to save you 5% off your entire purchase, even on sale items. It's a stackable code, so they're already great sales that they're running. You get an extra 5% off just for listening to Tackle Talk. So again, www.americanlegacyfishing.com, and be sure to use code TACKLETALK5. Okay, folks, first off, if the audio sounds a little different this week or if there's some background noise or something, that's because I am sitting at a desk right now in a hotel room in Fort Worth, Texas, and not in my normal studio at home. And I toyed around with making this just a pre-recorded episode and having it ready to go and just scheduled to upload on Tuesday when you're listening to this, which certainly would have been more convenient, but I just felt like it would be very weird to have a completely non-Bassmaster Classic episode up right now, 2 days after the Bassmaster Classic, and act like everything that just happened over the past week didn't happen. So instead, it is midnight Central Time right now on Sunday night. The Bassmaster Classic just ended. We just got done with all of the kind of festivities after that. So I am sitting in a hotel room in what would now be like 1 a.m. Eastern for what I'm used to. But we are going to knock this episode out for you guys in some semblance, I guess, of a normal episode here so that you have something that is timely and relevant to listen to on Tuesday morning. So first off, the cat's out of the bag, so we're just going to start with this. I've been keeping this pretty close to the chest for, I'd say, probably about 4 or 5 months at this point. But the reason that the Bassmaster Classic, and in turn our Bassmaster Classic episode, sounds a little different this year is because I wasn't at the Bassmaster Classic working for Tackle Talk this year. I was at the Bassmaster Classic working for Bassmaster. So I just want to say first and foremost that it was an honor to have an institution like BASS and the crew over at JM Associates to believe in me and believe in us enough with absolutely zero live broadcasting or TV experience to not only give me a shot, I guess, on camera for an event like this, but for the first event doing it being the Bassmaster Classic. And it's just something that I know that I don't take for granted, and I just want to send a giant thank you to, again, Bass and the JM crew for making my first 3 days on the team there and working with them a blast. So over the course of 3 days, the reason that I was not able to cover the expo and the festivities like I normally do is because each afternoon I got to join the broadcast desk with Kyle Jesse and a bunch of different guest hosts like Matt Robertson, Mark Menendez, Brock Mosley, Kyle Welcher, and a ton more. And we did that for about, I'd say, 3 hours a day on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on YouTube Live and on Bassmaster.com for their Bassmaster Classic live cast. So I got to do that. That was awesome. In case you missed it, I'm going to pull some clips from those broadcasts really quickly just to kind of show you what that sounded like.
The 2025 Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic presented by Under Armour here on beautiful Lake Ray Roberts. We're seeing a beautiful aerial shot there with the standing timber, the boats amongst it. We have had an action-packed morning so far on Bassmaster Live, but this is the Bassmaster Live cast. We want to say hello to all of our friends on YouTube watching, tuning in. We are here inside the expo with my co-host, Andrew Hayes, who I didn't realize until we started this is such a celebrity. Ever since we got here, he's been signing autographs and taking pictures and signing babies and doing everything else. I'm sure Bill Lowen, our special guest on the first segment here, has probably been doing a lot of the same. But, Bill, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. You know, the expo is completely packed. It's crazy out there. I was actually doing the Yamaha signing, and here we are now. So it's just going to be one of them days where we're bouncing around. Very exciting.
Are you excited to watch some fishing with us here?
Absolutely. Big bites. And look, at the Classic, that's what it's all about. It's not about catching the limit at the Classic. It's about catching 5-pounders and winning. And that's what we're going to see the guys do this week.
So we've heard since 2021, obviously, I think there's more weeds on that east side of the lake than there used to be, too. How does that change things for those anglers that are highly concentrated on that east side of the lake?
You know, it definitely changed the dynamics of the lake. You know, in the past, them fish only had rock or wood to get on. Now, we all know as bass fishermen, any lake that has grass in it is just, it makes the fish population pop.
Big things happening out on the water here at the Expo. Fort Worth, such a great host city for the Bassmaster Classic. So glad to be back here. Andrew, what are we expecting here? I mean, we got an afternoon full of excitement. What are we predicting here?
This is going to be awesome because it just should get better as the afternoon goes on. Those fish will pull closer to a lot of that cover, I think the guys have found. And this is not one of those deals where it's like, all right, sun up to, the first 2-3 hours, everybody makes their hay, and then it's done. It's going to be the polar opposite. So I think we're in for a big afternoon. Again, I think all of those kind of bold predictions from early on about big fish, about big bags, some of those records that could be broken, those are just still definitely in play going into the afternoon.
Absolutely. Out on the water right now with Taco Itu. So, biggest bass, heaviest bass, single day. Bassmaster Classic history, 11-10, Preston Clark. That was at the Kissimmee Chain, 2006. Do we see a bass bigger than 11-10? Now, that's where it gets a little challenging.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the toughest one to break for sure. I think you're in likelihood ranking. I think you probably got the total. The 3-day total is probably the most likely. Then you've got your bag. Then you got your single fish. Not to say it can't be done. We've had 13+ pounders come out of here in March out of Lake Ray Roberts. So it's definitely happened. There might even be one over there on the truck if you actually go look at it. But I think it's going to be your toughest one.
10 minutes, the entire scoreboard can be flip-flopped in just a matter of 10 minutes. And that can be the first 10 minutes or it can be the last 10 minutes of the event.
And Greg has between the ears what you need to be able to do that, right? He's got 19 years, I believe, experience in the Bassmaster Classic. We got 18 guys here that have never been here ever.
Right.
He's been in the Bassmaster Classic almost as long as some of these guys have been on the earth. So he's got the mental part of it down, which I think is one of the toughest parts of fishing the Classic, I'm assuming.
It is.
Okay, so that was the first part of each day. And then in the evening, for about 3 or 4 hours, for the duration of the entire weigh-in and the arena show, each and every night, all 3 nights, my job was basically to be down in the tunnel where the anglers and their boats line up and kind of stage in that area before driving out into the arena and then going on stage and weighing their fish, so that the broadcast would have someone down backstage to kind of throw it to and to do some in-boat interviews with the anglers themselves and ask them some questions before they actually hit the arena floor stage. So in case you missed that as well, I'm also going to put some clips in here right now so you can get a feel for what that sounded like.
Absolutely. We just got done with the TNT light show that we did to kick off the weigh-in. We also will have all access. So the all access show is commentary from us, guests up here as well. We will listen to Mercer on stage with the anglers when big moments happen. And we also have our guy, Andrew Hayes, in the tunnel as anglers pull through, giving us a rundown of some emotion that they're about to experience.
Yes, we are down here backstage for the 55th annual Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic presented by Under Armour. We're down here in the tunnel. You can see some of the boats starting to line up behind me. And I got to tell you, there's a little bit of a different kind of attitude and feel down here than there was yesterday. Yesterday, everybody's excited to be here. They know they have another day to kind of right those wrongs they found out on the water. Today, it's a little bit more serious, a little bit more buttoned up. I think a lot of these guys know, hey, I'm pretty close to that cut line. I know the bass track may or may not be exactly right. And, their lives could change here in a few minutes, whether, it's a pound here, a pound there. What way they moved on moving day, we're about to find out on stage.
But another guy who's fished in the state of Texas in the Classic, that same Classic we mentioned at Conroe, this next man in the tunnel won that event, and he did it in dramatic fashion. Something we could see tomorrow. Andrew, you got Jay Lee in the tunnel. Joe Lee.
All right, we are back here in the tunnel with Jordan Lee, a two-time champion. Jordan, somebody's life is going to change this week. Somebody is going to win the Bassmaster Classic tomorrow afternoon. Almost about this time, someone will be hoisting that trophy. How will their life change forever? You've experienced it twice.
I have. It really, obviously, it's probably going to be somebody that hasn't won the Classic before. I think there was only 2 previous champions that were not in contention to win. But to win the Classic, man, not only is the 300,000 nice, yeah, that's great, but there's so much more when you are the Classic champion for the year that you just can't explain. I mean, winning the first one for me was like everybody just knows you as the Bassmaster Classic champion. It doesn't matter, especially here in Texas. Like whoever wins it this week is going to gain so many new fans that didn't even maybe know who that person was, and you just get a lot of notoriety and fans around the world that are watching.
But this guy yesterday, 2 fish on day 1 and a giant bag yesterday. Let's talk to Ben Milliken backstage.
All right, we are back here with Ben Milliken. Ben, one of our biggest turnarounds from day 1 to day 2. Day 1, a little over 8 pounds. Day 2, 26.11. What can you attribute that change to out there? That huge swing from day 1 to day 2?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't make the adjustment quick enough on day 1 to see that. In practice, I was catching the fish a lot in that milfoil in the grass on a stick bait and on a chatterbait. And I think the water cooled off a little bit. And day 1, man, I'm kicking myself because there's nothing more in the world I love than Texas than fishing for these suspended timber fish, especially with the jerkbait, especially with the glide bait. And for some reason, I just didn't do that. I did lose a giant one on day 1 doing it, and I just didn't stick with it. I kept trying to force the grass bite. And I ended up with 8 pounds. But then, yesterday I got fortunate enough. I pulled into a pocket, saw 3 suspended on one tree. First cast to them, they were fighting over a jerkbait. And I turned the trolling motor, there's another one. Turned the trolling motor, there's another one. I'm just like, this is what's going down right now. And it didn't hurt that Easton Fothergill was fishing basically the same exact stretch as I was, just outside a little bit further. And I had about 22 pounds, asked him, and he had 27. I was like, that's what's going down.
What's more satisfying, dropping 26.11 on the Bassmaster Classic stage or making Dave Mercer eat a pickled quail egg?
I mean, that's pretty close. I'm not going to lie. I'll just go with the experience of being able to go to the weigh-in and hold the fish up, and Dave eating the egg was awesome, too.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. All right, we are back here in the boat with Carl Jacobson. Carl, obviously we know a lot of your story about coming over from Australia and learning a new species and learning bass fishing. People at home might not realize how special this specific area is to you. You really cut your teeth and learned to bass fish, not just, when you came over to the United States, but down here in Texas. Lake Ray Roberts was a big part of that.
Yeah, in end of 2014, I moved to Frisco and in just outside of Dallas. And, yeah, I sort of learned on Louisville and Roberts and a lot of these Texas lakes, out to Lake Fork, and we lived there till the end of 2019 when I won, and it's kind of why I won Lake Tenkiller, just that tough. Ray Roberts is a lot like an Oklahoma lake. It fishes tough, and so, I had high hopes this week. I sort of flew under the radar. A lot of the local guys got a lot of coverage, but I'd spent 5 years here really learning all of these fisheries, and it looks like we're going to come close to making a top 10. Had an epic day today, had 3 giants, and I hooked the biggest bag I've ever hooked in my life today. It still wouldn't have been enough to win, but just an awesome way to finish off a great week.
That means we got one guy left backstage we haven't talked to. That's Easton Fothergill. Let's talk to him.
The big bag of the day.
We are back here with Easton Fothergill. Easton, an awesome day today. Can you do your best to try and put into words the past 8 or 9 hours?
It's undescribable. I've been shaking uncontrollably since about 10 this morning. I mean, I tried to rig my rods in the boatyard. It's not happening right now. I'm on some sort of adrenaline rush I've never felt before. It's insane.
As well, Bassmaster Classic app, the TNT Light Show. So excited. It's going to be a light show in the back as well. Andrew Hayes, first year working the Classic for BASS. He's a rookie somewhat. Andrew, 2 days under your belt, but today is the day. If you don't do good today, the other days don't matter. You better bring it today in the tunnel.
Well, that goes for me. That also goes for 25 guys behind me. We are back here on the biggest day of the biggest tournament of the entire year, the biggest weekend in bass fishing, the Bassmaster Classic. So we're going to be back here. We started with 56. Now we're down to 25. At the end of the night, we will be down to 1. Somebody's life is about to change forever in the next couple hours. And as is the name of this show, All Access, we're going to try and give you that all access as we hop in the boats with the guys one final time to gather those thoughts before they go out of the arena. So there you go. I don't know. It's my first time doing anything like that. And I'm going to be honest with you all. The only experience I have for doing anything like this is this show. And we've done Tackle Talk for over 5 years now, obviously. But Tackle Talk is pre-recorded, it's edited, and it's like 30 to 45 minutes once a week. This was my first chance, I guess, to kind of dip my toes into something that is hours and hours long of live coverage over 3 days. Again, kind of nonstop, definitely out of my comfort zone a little bit, but it was really exciting to see how that goes. So I think it went pretty well. I don't really have anything to judge it off of one way or the other, but I just felt like for the first time, it was a lot of fun, and I did have a blast getting the chance to be a part of the team here at the Bassmaster Classic. So a huge shout out again to Bass, to JM Associates, to Ronnie, to Kyle, to everybody that really helped me and kind of showed me the ropes for the newbie here at this event. Okay, now that that is out of the way, let's get to the actual Bassmaster Classic. So the Bassmaster Classic is a little different than your normal Bassmaster Elite Series events. Obviously, your normal Elite Series events have over 100 anglers. I think it's 104 to be exact this year, but the Bassmaster Classic has 56. And those 56 anglers are comprised of last year's champion, so this time that is Justin Hamner, last year's final Elite Series champion, that would be Corey Johnston, last year's Angler of the Year, which is his brother Chris Johnston, the winner of each of the Bassmaster Opens events from the previous year. So that's like 8 more right there. 1 qualifier from the college bracket, 3 qualifiers from the Bass Nation Championship, 1 qualifier from the Team Championship, and then the rest of the spots are determined by the Angler of the Year points from the previous year. And if my math is right, I believe that is 40 anglers that make it on Angler of the Year points alone. So that's how you arrive to this 56 angler field. So well under half of the Elite Series field actually qualifies for the Bassmaster Classic. So it's a lot more prestigious of an event. Obviously, you have to work your butt off. You have to qualify for this. You have to have a great year the year before to even have a chance to fish the Bassmaster Classic. It's also a 3-day tournament instead of a regular 4-day tournament. Usually we go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This time it's just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You start out with 56 anglers for all day 1 and day 2, and then after day 2, we cut those anglers to 25 that actually make it to Championship Sunday. And then at the end of a long Sunday, 1 angler is crowned your Bassmaster Classic champion, and in that moment, that angler's life changes forever. So I'm going to keep this relatively short because if you care, you probably watched the coverage or kept up with this event. But the Classic was held this year at Lake Ray Roberts here in Texas, with the expo and the weigh-in actually being in Fort Worth, Texas. So some fun facts about Lake Ray Roberts, if you care. It spans almost 28,000 acres, which is about 43.5 square miles. It's about 23 miles long, but has 260 miles of shoreline that go around this lake. It has an average depth of 24 feet with a max depth of 106, but almost all of our anglers this week were nowhere near either of those depths. But the big story here heading into the Bassmaster Classic was the wind. And these poor guys, during this couple days that they had for practice, battled absolutely brutal conditions. 30 mile per hour sustained winds, gusts of 50 plus. You know, on Lake Ray Roberts, that is a recipe for a rough time out there on the lake. And social media was full of videos of these guys just spearing giant waves as they tried to navigate practice for those couple days. And that did 2 things, I think. One, it made it hard to practice, obviously, and find the fish and have a good game plan going into day 1, of course, but it also took away some prime time for them to learn how to navigate the lake, especially for anglers that have never been here before. Lake Ray Roberts is a minefield. It is full of all kinds of standing timber and obstructions under the water and above the water, too. You can see a lot of it above the water. A lot of hazards, but it would have been really nice to have some calm days for them to learn how to run this lake effectively. But also, this lake, Lake Ray Roberts, has giants. Now, it's not a great numbers lake. It fishes small sometimes, but it is a size lake in terms of the size of fish that we're going to catch here. So we saw that in practice, and then we saw it in the actual event too. We actually saw it more so in practice, though. In practice, we heard of 10s and 11s being caught, but then in the actual event, I think our biggest fish topped out in like the high 8s. But let's get to the important stuff here. Let's get to some actual results from the 2025 Bassmaster Classic. So if we want to start in 10th place here, we had last year's champion Justin Hamner, who continued his impressive Bassmaster Classic performance streak. Justin has now made 3 Bassmaster Classics, and he is 3 for 3 for making top 10s with 1 win and 1 top 5. In 9th place, you had Patrick Walters making his 2nd top 10 in a Bassmaster Classic. In 8th place, your reigning Angler of the Year, Chris Johnston. 7th place went to Brandon Lester, which makes his 4th Classic top 10. And then there were 6. And if you know anything about the Bassmaster Classic, that is a big number because that means we have made it to our Super 6. And if you do know anything about the Super 6, it's probably the presentation and the production of that Super 6, which is probably my favorite moment of the entire Bassmaster Classic each and every year. It's a fully produced video that every year gives me chills without fail in that arena. And then this year, instead of Dave announcing each of those 6 anglers and then having them step on stage afterwards, all 6 anglers were on stage together, and then one by one, Dave called them out and then rattled off through their list of accomplishments right in their face, kind of like he does backstage at the Elite Series events. If you've ever seen some of that behind-the-scenes footage, which the anglers always get a kick out of, Dave staring them straight in the eyes and rattling off everything that they have accomplished in their fishing career so far and getting the crowd hyped up. He did that on stage in front of everybody with those anglers right in front of him. It was just a really cool moment if you understand how impactful that is for these anglers, and you kind of realize that this is something that Dave does at every Elite Series season, and seeing that take place at the Super 6 was really awesome. But if we want to keep going down the list here, 6th place went to shallow water expert John Cox, who made his 2nd Super 6 of his career. 5th place went to Corey Johnston, which makes his 2nd Super 6 of his career as well. You had 4th place Hunter Shryock, who was competing in his 5th Bassmaster Classic, but until this point, his highest finish had been 25th place, so a great week for Hunter. 3rd place went to one of 2 hometown, or at least home state, I guess, favorites heading into this event, Lee Livesey. 2nd place went to last year's rookie phenom on the Elites and showing no signs of stopping anytime soon, Trey McKinney. And 1st place, I think it only seems fitting we should let Dave Mercer take it from here because we will not do it justice. Let's go to Dave for his call for the winner of the 2025 Bassmaster Classic.
Look out! Came into today with the lead. They call him Easton, but if you've watched his fishing career, it might be more appropriate to call him Beaston. He is an absolute animal, a young 22-year-old angler, and what he's overcome and accomplished is truly amazing. Oh boy. Looks like a good day at the office. Let's get Trey McKinney and Easton Fothergill side by side. A 22-year-old and a 20-year-old shooting it out for the most coveted title in professional bass fishing. Started the day with 54 pounds and 5 ounces. Needs 14.3. 22 pounds, 10 ounces. 22.10. And with 76 pounds, 15 ounces. Of Easton Fothergill, and he is your Bassmaster Classic champion.
Okay, so there you go. You heard it. Easton Fothergill. And Easton is our rookie phenom this year. I think coming into this season, if you asked anybody which of the rookies that you really need to watch out for in 2025 and beyond, it's probably Easton Fothergill. Easton has won at almost every level. He was a great high school angler. He won the college bracket in college. He's a Bassmaster Opens winner. He double qualified for this Bassmaster Classic, and now he etches his name in bass fishing lore forever as your 2025 Bassmaster Classic champion. Everything that I know about this kid, I got to interact with him a couple times this week and really get to kind of meet him and see his process a little bit backstage. And I got to tell you, it's really impressive to watch somebody who is, I think, 22 years old is what Easton is, and the maturity and just the way he carries himself. I wish I was half that mature at age 22. I even told him that after he won, obviously. I was like, man, I wish that I just had the head on my shoulders that you have at your age, because it's really impressive to see. His decision making is great. The ability for him not to get spun out. He had a little rough day today in terms of getting a start. His day definitely came together much later than I'm sure he would like to have, but he ended it with just a classic exclamation mark fish as time was expiring, a huge fish. And the Bassmaster Classic, I think I even said it on one of the broadcasts, just seems to have a knack for theatrics. Just when you think that it's going to be an event where someone's going to completely pull away, and it is going to be one of those that, all day 2 or day 3, really who's going to win it. The Bassmaster Classic is the great equalizer. We have it in March for a reason, because every single day those conditions are changing. Those fish are changing. We saw it this week. You saw fish that were moving up to spawn. You saw fish that had already moved up to spawn. You had fish that were thinking about moving up to spawn. You had these different kind of areas where fish were staging up, and it was really interesting to see these anglers and which direction they really went to. It seemed like the bigger bites were really coming from those anglers that concentrated on that standing timber and realized that as the day goes on, those fish would pull closer and closer to that timber. And we had people that were basically catching fish off what they thought were beds suspended in these cypress trees. So, if it's 10 or 11 foot deep, they were throwing, in 2.5, 3.5 feet up that tree, and that's where they were catching those fish. We saw Easton Fothergill doing that. He had a really light Nico rig. If there was a bait, I guess, that we would call like the Bassmaster Classic winning bait this year, it's probably going to be that Strike King Nico rig worm that he had on there. He had like a 3/32 ounce head, I believe, is the last time that I saw in terms of the weight that he was throwing. But again, in that wind and the conditions they were battling, watching him throw a very, very light Nico rig for those fish that were up those trees a little bit was really, really cool. So again, congratulations to Easton Fothergill, your 2025 Bassmaster Classic champion. Okay, and really quick here, I do want to touch on some stuff from the expo. Now, I'm going to be honest, I didn't get to walk around as much as I would like to. Again, I was bouncing back and forth and pretty busy the whole time. I was able to sneak away a couple times and just kind of see some key things that I wanted to make sure I saw before I left this classic, one of which I stopped over at Great Lakes Finesse. We obviously had Dan Miguel on maybe a month, 2 months ago, probably at this point, for our Breaking the Mold series, and we were talking to him about the Juvie Craw from last year. They came out with some new shapes this year. They came out with kind of a little swim bait, but the big thing that I was excited about was the Ned bug. So they came out with this Ned rigged size bug that looks like a little creature bait almost, got a couple little antennas on it, definitely not a craw profile, definitely more of a bug insect profile, but thick enough, round enough. I think this is going to be a pretty big player around me. It's a little bit bigger than I thought it was, honestly, but I think it's going to be great on a little Ned rig dragging around by where we're at. I was really happy to see that. It's a nice, clean design. Hats off to him on those new Ned bugs. I also got to feel his new rods. They were great. They're also very expensive, so you take that for what it is too. But they felt very Shimano-y, especially with the handles that they decided to put on those. Really kind of that monocoque handle that you're used to seeing from the things like the higher end Shimanos. But we got a chance to check those out a little bit. I think they're $3.99 retail, so again, I'll probably hold off a little bit on grabbing one of those rods. But he did have some cool sizes. I think I picked up I believe it was a 7.9 medium light that felt really cool, so some unique sizes and lengths. So that was Great Lakes Finesse. I also got the chance to stop over to KGB Swim Baits. You know me, when KGB's around, I've said it a couple times at this point. I think of all the swim baits, we saw the swim bait bros line up like crazy to try and grab Piz swim baits or whatever and stand in line for an hour for your chance to maybe go buy one of these real hyped up swim baits. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think the 7-inch Chad Shad is the best glide bait that I have ever used. So I went over there. They had some 6 inches. They were way out of those by the time I got over there. I think he had to kind of do drops in certain times for those because those were so in demand. But I went over and picked up a regular 7-inch. I picked up one that kind of looks like a baby King Yo kind of pattern to it. It's white. It's got a little chartreuse on it. It's got got a big pink side on it. I think that'll be killer for smallmouth around here. I was really excited to see him have some cool colors at this expo of just the regular size Chad. I also went over to the net baits booth because if you saw, I think I posted it the day or two before the Classic started, they released a soft plastic minnow that looks very, very similar to the Crush City Mooch minnow, where it's got that kind of trident tail on it. So I was able to make my way over there. I was able to snag a pack of those. Those are not really out and available yet, I don't think. They didn't have any there anyway, but I was able to snag with a connection to get a pack of those. So I really want to take those home and kind of A, B, and look right beside each other and see if there are any differences to the Mooch minnow, and if so, what those are. So that might be a fun comparison later down the road. That was just an intriguing one where, it looks similar enough in the pictures, but it might be worth a closer look to just see how similar those baits are. I also went over and I did, kind of fall for it. The Bassmaster Classic, they always do exclusive colors of the Mega Bass Vision 110, and they had two colors this year. They had one that was a true Bassmaster Classic color, which again was kind of a play on a baby kingo, except it had kind of like a cracked back on it, red eyes. It was kind of cool looking, but they also had, I believe, what they called a GP baby kingo, which was more of like, yes, it was available at the Bassmaster Classic, but I think it's also at select retailers in a very limited quantity. So this wasn't something that you had to go to the Bassmaster Classic to get. It is a limited color, but I love the regular baby kingos, just that regular, white with the pink and the little bit of yellow chartreuse to it. It's a great smallmouth color around us. So they came out with the GP baby kingo, which I believe is just a little bit more translucent, and I actually like that color better than the Bassmaster Classic exclusive color. So I actually stocked up on the GP baby kingos because I think those again are just going to be killers in the river when I want something just a little bit more subtle and not just full color like the regular baby kingo kind of is. So again, did I fall for it a little bit? Probably. I bought the Bassmaster Classic exclusive colors and the limited colors. I know people like Mega Bass think we're a bunch of idiots, and they realize if they just slap a limited color sticker on the front, then people like us will buy them. And guess what? They're probably right, because it's just something in our brain. It's the same thing as like in my redneck DNA. When I see a sale tag on something, I just feel like I have to buy it. It's kind of the same thing. If I see a limited edition or a limited color on something, even if I don't need it, I feel like I kind of have to buy it because I'm never going to have the chance at it again. I guess not that it makes it right, but the good news about these Mega Bass limited colors is, if I buy them and I realize and I have some buyer's remorse and I realize I didn't want to spend that much money on them, you can resell them all day long. Again, that's not like something I really try to do or condone, is like flipping baits and all that crazy world that people get into. But if I get home and realize, hey, Andrew, you probably shouldn't have bought 5 of these, you probably should have only bought 2. The good news is with colors like that, you can resell them no problem. They will fly off of your eBay page or on one of those Facebook pages or something if you post them. But I did pick up some jerk baits. I also picked up a little karashi, which I think will be very cool in the rivers. Other than that, I didn't really get a chance to look around for deals too much. The one deal that my buddy Ryan did find, he found those Bubba scale lights, which I think are normally like $70. A couple of the folks here had them for like $35, which is an awesome deal for those Bubba scales. That's one of those things where I just end up buying like the $25 Rapala scale at Walmart or whatever, and then I immediately regret it. I wish I didn't buy that, because the first time it gets wet, that thing stops working and it's not accurate at all. I have weighed 5-pound dumbbells 1,000 times on that scale, and every time it's a different weight, so I know it's not accurate. But again, it gives me a relative idea of how big that fish was, I guess. But yeah, so other than that, I didn't really get a chance to peruse around the expo too much, but I did get to kind of soak in a totally different side of the Bassmaster Classic. And the big thing I just want to communicate with you guys as we kind of get toward the end of today's episode is just how big of an appreciation that I now have for how much work it takes to put on something like the Bassmaster Classic. You can kind of get an idea when you look at the arena show or you look at the expo, you look at something of that magnitude and you say, yeah, that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen without a ton of effort. But at the same time, you don't realize all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, especially on the broadcast side. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago in one of the like rapid fire questions when people were complaining about bass fishing coverage. You don't realize how many moving pieces it takes to put together a live broadcast for like 7 hours a day of live bass fishing with multiple cameras in multiple boats fighting for cell signal. You have another stage that's somewhere completely different that's getting radio feeds and TV feeds sent back to them so that they can try and commentate it. You have packages for graphics. You have packages for maps. You've got GPS on these guys trying to make sure that when you zoom in and out on the map, You have an accurate representation of where they are on the lake. You're trying to throw to different stories and prepackaged pieces and guests, and there's always that unknown of live TV and things like bass fishing. Let's be honest. We always sit there and we're like, oh, I wish they'd show the fishing more. There's not a lot to show a lot of times, unfortunately. You know, at a place like Lake Ray Roberts, we talked to a ton of these anglers this week, and they were saying on most of these days, they're trying to get 4, 5, 6, 7 bites. And if that's the case, if you're out there for 7 hours and you're looking for 7 bites, well, guess what? That's a bite an hour if you're lucky and you execute correctly, which means there's not a whole lot of action to show. You're just showing a lot of people going through the motions of fishing, which means that you really have to get creative with how to fill that time. And that's something that I really learned to appreciate this week, was just how much goes into filling that time to give us a broadcast that we can be excited to watch when there's really not a whole lot going on the actual live cameras. But again, I know, like I said, I kind of kept this a secret from you all for a long time. If you listen really closely to like the Mark Zona episode or things like that, some things might have squeaked out a little bit. Yes, I went down to visit the folks in Little Rock, Arkansas back in the fall of last year, and we've kind of stayed in touch since then. But it is really cool. It's an honor. I thank them so much for believing in, you know, us and me enough to give me a chance to be a part of this. It's a dream come true. It's the Bassmaster Classic. It's the Super Bowl of fishing, and them giving the chance to a little guy like us, like I feel like that is kind of almost a win for the little guys, the little independent guys that, you know, you can work your tail off and you can get the chance to do something like that if you put your mind to it. So I'm not going to get sappy or anything here, but as I sit and kind of reflect over the last 3 crazy days that we've had here and all the messages and people that have reached out and sent pictures of you watching on, you know, TV or on your laptop or whatever, just know that I appreciate you all. It was fun to try something new. This is where I feel most comfortable here on Tackle Talk, obviously, with you all every single Tuesday. But I wanted again to make sure that even though this isn't like our normal Bassmaster Classic episode, which a lot of times goes like 2.5 hours, this is going to be a lot shorter episode. Again, it is now like almost 1 a.m. in my hotel room here in Fort Worth, Texas, but I wanted to make sure that you had something timely to listen to on Tuesday versus some canned episode about a bait or something that just has nothing to do with the biggest spectacle in all of bass fishing that just happened a few days ago. So again, a huge congratulations to Easton Fothergill, a young 22-year-old angler whose life just changed forever. And if I was a betting man, and I kind of am sometimes, I would say that this is not the last time we are going to see Easton Fothergill on a stage this big, closing in the moments that matter the most. He seems to have it in his DNA, and I can't wait to watch this guy as he grows in his career. So congratulations to Easton. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you again for reaching out over the past, week or so. Next week, we will be back with a normal episode, I promise you. But until then, find us on the website, tackletalkpodcast.com. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Tackle Talk Podcast. And we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk Podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.